Oye, 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 espérate y espérame. Pero vamos a hablar inglés.
No me llama Carlos, ese no es mi nombre, te voy a dar un cocotazo. Tienes que entender que soy mujer y no muchacho. Me da pique porque para ti soy un fracaso. Me da pique porque para los hombres soy Pegaso. Me da pique porque transfo y sobrepaso. Me da pique porque ellos son carrasco. Me da pique porque ellos son carrasco. Un carrasco, dale fuetazo. Un carrasco, dale fuetazo.
Oh shit. Alright. ¿Qué lo que mi gente? Welcome back to another episode of the VAMOS HABLAR INGLÉS podcast. I'm your host, REINA TAÍNA, and I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys my unpopular opinions about the creative economy, the creative industry. For folks who don't know what that is, it's essentially just a culmination of the entertainment industry when it comes to TV, performance, dance, when it comes to poetry, tattooing, anything that has to do with creativity and artistry, right? All that exists under the creative economy. If we're looking at this from a capitalist standpoint, and that's something that's really important to note. The title of this podcast episode is, and I quote, Reina's Unpopular Opinions About the Creative Economy. Listen up, end quote. So before we start, I want to do a little check-in. How's everyone doing? I usually don't even give, I don't even know if I don't think I do. Give like dates, but I should start doing that. So I'm recording this on Tuesday, March 18th. It's around 7 p.m. We're chilling. I'm in my room. I'm in Harlem, gang. Y estamos aquí, estamos relajada, estamos calmada, concentrada en esto. You know, just we're here, we're present. And we're going to practice a lot of grace in this episode. We're going to practice a lot of peace, a lot of acceptance of our full selves. So, I want us to come into that. Not to sound like a whole guru right now, but let's just take a moment, let's take a moment, realize where we are, realize where you are in relation to the world, in relation to yourself. Just take that time. I want us to take a big breath. Inhale. Exhale. I like doing that. I do that on my own time, but I want to try my best to incorporate that. So like I said, el martes 18 de marzo, we're going to be chilling. We're going to be vibing. 100%. I have my little... here we go. I have my little ting ming over here, and I'm about to roll up again. Well, you know what? Y'all know that I don't know how to roll up yet. But vamos a hacer eso. Y nada, vamos a hablar. We're going to be very honest. We're going to be very vulnerable. And I'm going to try to really focus on more about my unpopular opinions and not so much on the historical part. But my ass is going to talk about the historical part. So, ya tú sabes. Like, that's just my thing. We're going to talk about history. We're going to get all that because the problem that I see as a filmmaker, right, as just the director of my own life, is that if I were to tell my story, you're going to look at it from your own perspective. And that's the truth. Because there is no reference point, right? Especially if you've never met a trans person before. If we're specifically talking about that. Providing you all with this historical context, right? This like specific historical context in relation to my life, right? In relation to my identities. That's why I always say that all of my episodes, I look at it through an Afrojoteria lens. And for folks that don't know Afrojoteria is a new academic field of study that I developed. And it just further expands Joteria studies, which already exist, created in 2011 by Chicanx, queer and trans folks in California. And essentially it is an opportunity to, in an academic way, examine, celebrate, promote, research the lived experiences of queer and trans Chicanx and Latinx people. So I wanted to expand that, make a branch of that, and focus on Afro Latinx, Afro Indigenous, and Afro Caribbean people in the Caribbean and Latin America. So that is called Afrojoteria. So as an Afrojota, I'm going to be always looking through that lens. And for folks that want to learn more about Afrojoteria studies and a little bit more about Joteria studies, you can go to my website at www.lareinataina.com/blog. And there you're going to find different blogs that I write because I'm, also an independent researcher. And usually I like to post my little research there. And you'll see that one of the blogs, I have it in Spanish and in English. So, para la gente que quieren leer en español, yo lo tengo en español también. Lo que es afrojotería y toda esa cosa, que significa eso. So, there I created essentially 21, 22, I already forgot, but 21, 22 is a living document. Characteristics of Afrojoteria, for lack of a better term, characteristics. And all those characteristics together, right? Because intersectionality is something that's very important in this conversation. And it should be important in all conversations, really. That has nothing to do with socio-political status. That should just be a norm. That's just the way a human mind should be evolving to. That's critical thinking. These 21 to 22 characteristics I pulled and are inspired from Joterias, because there are 11 tenets, 11 characteristics there. So a lot of that is inspired from that. I expanded it, and it's going to be a living document. I would love in the future to be collaborating with different Afrojotexes to further expand that, because at the end of the day, it's a living document. We're always growing and changing, and queerness and transness and honestly Latinidad, all of that, big spectrum, a lot of blurred lines. So it's important to make it as holistic as possible. And the more data, the better, right? So yeah, estamos aquí. We're going to be rolling up. Don't mind me. So yeah, a little check-in. Estamos aquí. I'm on medical leave at this moment, focusing on myself, my Taino community, my trans community. I'm over here looking. Oh, esto está aquí mismo. Because I have pre-cones. What do you call that? And that's how I do it. Pero nada. And I got tattoos. I got hand tattoos. I love it. Yeah. Good times. So, this tattoo artist is a trans tattoo artist, and I was very happy I found them. They did an amazing job. Definitely go support them on Instagram, sol.b, sol.bee. I don't know how many E's, so just experiment with that. But I'll see. Ellos tan bacano. This is fire. I had numbing cream, pero there were some parts that they wasn't numb. And I didn't think it was gonna hurt. I thought it was gonna hurt, and it ended up not hurting, rather. So it was interesting. Pero yeah, that's a little life update. I'm gonna be going to Utah this weekend, because I'm a member of the Afrojoteria, the Association of Joteria Study, Scholarship, and Activism. I think that's what it is. Or Activism and Scholarship. And it's AJAS. So AJAAS. AJAS. That's the acronym. Y nada, we're going to do a little retreat for the new and current members, legacy members. And nada, I'm excited. I developed Afrojoteria before I was a part of this membership, and it was really just me fangirling over their work and me loving just the inclusion of critical pedagogy in the conversation of examining the lived experiences of queer and trans Latinx people. I really appreciated that. El diablo. Oh my goodness. I'm over here doing the most. Espérate. Pero nada, sí. Yo voy a hacer eso. That's gonna be fun. Gonna get to know them. I'm excited. Very much fangirling. One thing that I did want to add is that the really cool thing about Joteria studies and Afro Joteria studies is that it's, like I mentioned earlier, like critical pedagogy, where it's a type of teaching where it's more holistic, where instead of the teacher teaching you things, it's a give and take, right? It's a balance, right? Yin and yang, where everyone is learning and it's also taking into consideration everyone's lived experiences from the teacher to the student and applying those lived experiences into the learning, right? So something that's really beautiful is that, as we know, a lot of queer and trans people, especially a lot of queer and trans people of color, are creatives and are artists. And that is a very important component to the conversation of analyzing the lived experiences of this population. Very, very, very important. And Joteria emphasizes that and highlights that when we're talking about this, it's not just reading academic journals and like all of this other stuff. It's analyzing, Janelle Monáe's Dirty Computer. It's analyzing different short films and poetry. It's analyzing different dimensions of art and expression. Because you're not going to fully grasp the methods in which this population lives, right? Our lived experiences. You're not gonna get it until you combine it with art, because we look at the world through art. We look at the world through feeling, emotion, through nature, through color, through filmmaking, through words. De todo. Through photographs. All right, she's done. I'm gonna stop making so much noise. Vamos a poner esto aquí. Y vamos a poner esto aquí. Oh my goodness. I know you're hearing all of this. Boom, booklet. Okay. That should be fine. Entonces, seguimos. Real quick, I want to recap the titles of all the last episodes that I've done, just for folks who are new to the podcast. Welcome. And also very important, I am very behind, because I know in the first episode I said I was going to ensure that I have all of the citations y cosas así, and like the books that I use to do that research for the podcast episode. So bear with me. I'm gonna ensure that all the episodes have it. Yo lo tengo ahí mismo. It's just like, it gotta be polished. Like, that shit's a little ghetto, because my brain is neurodivergent, so it looks like a mess. So I just want to alphabetize it, MLA format. Ya tú sabes, it's the whole nine. All right, we went to private school, unfortunately. So, we got that MLA. Alright, so episode 1 is titled An Introduction to Afro-Joteria Studies. And there I talk more about Afro-Joteria Studies and also myself, so it's like a little introduction. Episode 2 is La Modernidad de Latinoamérica, Los Tres Blanquis. Here I talk about Latin American modernity and what that means and what Latinidad means. And also looking at it from the perspective of blanquedad, blanquitud, and blanqueamiento, which are 3 concepts that essentially talk about whiteness and how whiteness and whitening was used throughout the colonial periods in Latin America and in the Caribbean. Number 3, navigating the margins, Agatha Brooks's journey as a Black trans woman in the Caribbean. So my friend Agatha, que lo que? I hope she's listening. Hey. She is originally from the Bahamas, but is from the Dominican Republic. And yeah, we was chatting it up. We was spilling tea. She was spilling tea about her life and about her poetry and her artistry and polyamory and her hopes for the future. So definitely check that out. Support my girl. The next one, episode 4, titled Breaking Cycles, Understanding the Impact of Emotionally Immature Parents on Adult Development with AJ Ravi Kamal. So here, I invited my brother, AJ Ravi Kamal, Mr. AJ Ravi Kamal. And here we talked about emotionally immature parents based off of a book that he read that talks about how emotionally immature parents affect the development of their children, right? Of their children as they become adults, and how it affects how emotionally immature parents affect their child's adulthood. So we talked about our personal experiences. AJ gave amazing insight on his lived experiences, combining that with the conversations in the book, and we just had a really great dialogue. Episode 5 is titled From Trauma to Triumph, A Personal Story of Liberation. So here I talk about myself and my lived experiences the past 2 years since getting kicked out of my childhood home and being separated / disowned by my biological family and stuff like that. So I just kind of give you a little update on what was happening those 2 years and how that impacted my mental health, and how that also ties into the macro level, right? The larger conversation of white supremacy on a global context. This is random, but I got my nails done too. They're really pretty. Shout out to my Dominican gal them over there in Harlem. They're like mad pretty. I've never got them like this with the little shimmer and with the little like the little jewel bedazzled tingming. And I got cute little star designs. It's just eating me up. And then like with the hand tattoos, it's everything that I needed right now. Like, Lord, people can be a lot, you know? The state of the world and all. Number 6 is titled Reimagining, Reimaginando la Identidad Dominicana, un mensaje para mi pueblo dominicano. So here I talk about, this was posted on the 27th of February, which is the Dominican Independence Day. And I use that as an opportunity to bring in all of my Dominicans across the Dominican diaspora and have a conversation about our identity and how it has evolved over the course of these, 300 to 500 years, and how now is the time to reimagine it based off of the current lived experiences of the people today. Because I feel like a lot of us in many of our cultures, we kind of dwell on the past because of certain wars or racial tension and things like that. But we here now, and it's important to just focus on the now and not be on your bull because some shit went down 150 years ago and your people can't forgive. Like, not fam. But anyways, controversial, pero tú sabes. I know I'm gonna get all types of shit from that, pero whatever. And then episode 7, my unpopular opinion. So let's dive into it, shall we, darling? It's me over here telling AJ that I was gonna be done by 8:30. Bitch, it's 7:37. Yo, because you know me, I just be chatting. Entonces, one more time, for folks that want to learn more about me, La Reina Taína, Reina Semino, Camo Semino, I have many names, I have many dimensions. Please visit my website at www.lareinataina.com and explore. Like I said, I have many dimensions, so it's very difficult to explain to you guys who I am and what I am, right? I'm just a bad bitch, a creative director, that gal them, you know? Nobody can big up me. Them gal need 3-4 pussy to big up me, you know? Okay. Glad we're on the same page, period. Pineal gland, always. Wide open pineal glands. Let's do this. So I was gonna give y'all a little list of movies and ting-ming, but then I was just like, you know what? I'm on medical leave. I'm not gonna do the most. So this is gonna be very relaxed, but I'm still gonna school y'all with some history because I think it's unsettling that we're living our lives based off of what happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You gotta that's why we keep repeating history, right? because we need to be looking back 2,000 years in order to see 2,000 years forward. You feel me? So we can't be doing this like just going through life. Just, we can't. We gotta live. Okay? And we're gonna start through here because this is my expertise. So I'm gonna just talk about it from my perspective with the creative economy, the American creative economy. So I have 3 unpopular opinions, trying to keep it simple. And yeah, I'm gonna list them and then I'm gonna give you a little background context. We're gonna go into some history because it really like, it's like the meat of this conversation, right? It really better informs why I feel so strongly about these things and like why these are my 3 unpopular opinions. And then that's it. That's it. We're gonna have a little conversation. We're gonna talk about the military and Ting Ming, Y nada, no fuimos. So, I'm so rude. Like, for folks that want to partake, right? For those that don't want to, that's completely fine. We're all here together regardless. We're here as one people, as one community. But for those that want to partake, I invite you. I'm gonna light up right now. So for folks that want to light up, do a little salud, a little cheers. For other folks, get your drink. Get your favorite drink. Maybe your favorite drink is cacao. Maybe your favorite drink is beer. Maybe your favorite drink is a smoothie. Get that. I'm going to do a little cheers right now. I want to do a little salud. A salud to life. Salud to longevity, prosperity, peace for everyone listening. And salud to joy and creativity and art. May we all create more art together. Cheers. Salud. Period. How cute. That was cute. Period. Me and my improv. And so my 3 unpopular opinions are, number 1, personally, I think that when it comes to quality art, I'm thinking about it in a general sense, but also more specifically, film and TV, and music. In my opinion, I feel like this shit is plateauing and flatlining in the sense that it's like the same topics, but just like recycled differently. And I feel like, yeah, at the end of the day, por ejemplo, like if we're talking about music, okay, fine. If the Jersey Club is hitting, the Jersey Club is hitting in the club. And at the end of the day, if we in the club, we just want to shake ass. Like, we don't give a fuck about the lyrics. That's great. Fantastic. Pero al final del día, I feel like, and I'm going to talk about this. I feel like we get really caught up in the mass production and the commodification of our art. And it's like, when you mass produce shit and you just doing this shit for likes, for this, for that, or even if you're just doing it for yourself, but you're rushing your process. You know what I mean? Because you feel like you're behind and you want to get to a certain place. Like, it gets all blurred and it just becomes the same thing. And like, for me personally, it's hard to explain, but like, I look at the world in a very different way through like emotion, through feeling, through energies. And when I look at different artworks, right, I get an emotion, I get a feeling, I get an energy, a spirit comes out of it. And a lot of these movies, a lot of these songs, a lot of these TV shows, they give in dead spirit. I'm sorry. It's not given. It's not given. And I'm going to be completely honest. Even the content that is specifically BIPOC, so Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian, lo que sea, also, it's not the girl at all. I'm sorry. It's not. It's not. Because we need to understand that, you know what I mean? Like, we are people of color. We're Black. We're Asian. We're Indigenous. Like, we're Latinx. We're all these things. We're brown. We're South Asian. Like, we are not white. And all of these fuck-ass shows, I love them, right? I'm happy that we have more shows that represent us, especially more shows that have trans people, all these things. But al final del día, this shit is mad white supremacist. And I feel like it's always from the perspective of the white man. Still. And, like, we need to be hyper aware of how, again, like, thinking about the fucking Matrix. This is why I'm going to go off about this shit. But this is why it's so important. And that's such a revolutionary film, right? Because it's like we subconsciously are living in this blanqueamiento, living in this whitening. And we don't even know it. We just think that's who we are. And it's like, no, it's just that became a part of our personality because it was forced upon us. But like the shit is not doing it. Alright? That's number one. Okay, número dos. Son. Son. Number two. I think there's a big issue with how American capitalism defines and influences the success, the concept of success, but more specifically within creative economy, right? So what success means within this industry. I personally don't think American capitalism should be influencing or dominating creativity at all. And we're gonna understand why. I'm gonna talk about it, like why I can see a nation want to prioritize media manipulation for a lot of reasons. I can understand it. I get it. I hear ya, national security and all. I get it. Terrorism. I hear you, right? But I want you to hear me now, right? Because, so we gonna hear them out. We gonna read, and then we gonna hear me out. Because, hello. Número tres. I think the creative economy, especially if we're talking about it from only an American perspective, like, girl, like, what is it? Like, you know what I mean? This is a quote-unquote melting pot, as a lot of people like to use. This is like the melting pot, right? Especially we're thinking about New York, right? I personally believe that the creative economy needs to be dominated, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even want to use the word dominated, but since people, they love that word. On some no-kick shit. Whatever. So, in my opinion, I think the creative economy needs to be run by those who make it what it is, which are those people on the margins, right? Which are the people of color, the disabled, the femmes, the women, the plus size, the quote-unquote not pretty, like all this bullshit shit. All these bullshit shits, Like, al final del día, like, if it wasn't for people like us, right? The outsiders, the losers, the weirdos, the freaks, right? If it wasn't for us, the creative economy wouldn't be what it is today. All right? The billboards wouldn't be what it is today. All right? Point blank. The Grammys, Met Gala, toda esta mierda, Emmys, todo. It wouldn't be what it is today. It is very white dominated, but at the end of the day, the foundations of that shit is us. Point blank. You guys get all of our ideas from us. So we're going to be talking about these three, and we're going to jump into some historical context, because me, y'all girl, love to talk about history, because knowledge is power, and y'all deserve to hear the true history. Not alternative. I'm not even going to call it alternative. This is history, period. Coñazo. Mama huevazo. Yo, I'm just tweaking, yo. This shit's so funny. Alright, nos fuimos. Alright, so as you know, your girl likes to read, so just to like ground us, right? I don't like being on a tightrope. I want some stronger foundations. I'm gonna just read some things, and then from there I'm gonna expand more and talk about shit. Alright. From the early years of the United States, there was a consistent drive for territorial expansion. The manifest destiny ideology of the 19th century, which justified the U.S. territorial expansion across North America, is often viewed as the first major expression of American expansionism. It wasn't just about gaining land. It was about spreading American ideals, such as capitalism and democracy, often at the expense of indigenous populations and neighboring countries. And some examples of this is the annexation of Texas, the Mexican-American War, and the colonization of Puerto Rico and the Philippines. Just to name a few, there's still so many more. This desire for expansion didn't end with territorial gains, but continued into economic and military domains. So what that means basically is like, por ejemplo, right? When you're talking to some white folk and they be like, oh, I don't understand what's the big issue, like slavery is over, like we're in post-racial society, like, like I don't get it, like everything is fine, like Obama was president, right? Because the way America teaches the black history, the true history, the indigenous history, right? They teach it from a context of like it was from the past, right? They talk about indigenous people as if they were from the past, as if we were from the past. And that includes the legacy of slavery, of chattel slavery, transatlantic slavery. Entonces, also something that's important to know, which is why I love that there are folks listening to this, is that it's being seen as very surface level, right? It's like, oh, well, when we learned in school what slavery was, black people had chains on them and they were on the streets and they didn't have their own house and they didn't have their own health insurance, but now they do. So that means there is no slavery. You understand? So it's just like, it's what I'm seeing. Because if I grew up and I was taught that that is what slavery is, and then I'm being taught about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and those other shit, which, oh my God, can we please put them to rest? Coño, can we stop talking about them? Damn. Okay, Jesus. Pero like, you know, and then they're like, oh, you know, civil rights, yay, I had a dream. We did it, you know, lo hicimos, like a whole nine. So then now we're thinking as children, right? As teenagers, as adolescents, as adults, oh, okay, so we're done. But you need to understand that when I talk about critical pedagogy, when I talk about looking at things from a critical lens, it's understanding that there is more to that, right? It's dimensional. It's not just a flat character, right? It's not two-dimensional. So moving on. The 20th century, particularly after World War II, saw the U.S. exerting its global influence with both covert and overt military interventions. The U.S. sought to expand its capitalistic economic system worldwide, often using its military and economic power to establish markets for its goods, secure access to natural resources, and push back against any movements or governments that threatened the capitalist order, whether they were communist or socialist. So, that's a little overview. But now what I want to do is that starting with 1920 and moving all the way up to today, I want to go kind of like by decade or by section or by age, right? Or era, if you lack of a better term, and explain to you how more specifically, because like I said, the creative economy is very expansive and very, very broad. But we're going to be specifically talking about film and TV and a little bit of fashion, just a little bit. But it's really going to lean more towards Hollywood type of conversation in that relationship because historically speaking, that's really where it all starts. And then we get into the whole conversations about all these other creative endeavors, all these other creative professions. So let's jump into it. So the 1920s in America saw an explosion of popular culture driven by economic prosperity. As incomes rose, many Americans had extra money to spend, and they poured it into movies, music, fashion, and new technologies. Jazz music flourished during this jazz age, quote unquote, and the youth flapper style redefined women's fashion with short skirts and bold attitudes. Mass media like radio and cinema became mainstream. By the decade's end, about 75% of Americans attended a movie theater weekly. Sit with that for a second. 75% of Americans, that's everybody in the U.S. at that time, was going to the movie theater weekly. Think about that. Now, think about that in the context of controlling the narrative, controlling American ideals, right? Because at the end of the day, the ones at the top determine what gets to be on the screen. And if we're going weekly, and we taking our kids weekly, babe, they conditioning you, they grooming you subconsciously, you know? This early convergence of capitalism and creativity created a nationwide consumer culture where people, quote, saw the same advertisements, bought the same goods, listened to the same music, and did the same dances. And it's funny because you know how, like, America be talking about like, oh, communism, everything's the same. And it's like, girl, like, everything's the same over here. Y'all want to be binary. Y'all want everyone to get married heteronormatively. Like, y'all want everyone to dress the same. Y'all want everyone to have no tattoos. Y'all want everyone to be fucking Catholic. Like, hello, which one is it? Are we going to be independent and different, or are we going to be the same? Because you can't do both. You can't just pick and choose some slices of the cake and then icing from another cake. Like, tú estás loco. Jesus. However, beneath the glamour, access to this cultural boom was unequal. For example, black artists drove new music trends, but often performed for segregated audiences, and their work was frequently appropriated and undercredited in an entertainment industry dominated by white entrepreneurs. And yeah, that's the tea, right? That's the tea. And we start to see this, right? That it started honestly, it started even before then, but for the sake of our conversation today, it starts from here, the 1920s. And we're going through the same exact shit where it's like we have black artists performing for only white people, or yeah, essentially only white people, because at the end of the day, like that's the only way to make it lucrative, right? Going to these specific bars, going to these specific venues, these spaces, and getting your shit completely copied and pasted. And now estamos aquí, and I'm over here Spotify, and I can go to my little cute little thing que me dice, tells me how much money I made through Spotify, through Apple, through whatever, and that should be 0.000000001. Like, what is that? And the thing is that like it's upsetting that people don't see that. Like this, like, and this is why I wanted to do this in the 1920s, because baby, we're in the 20s now. We're in the roaring 20s now. So it's been 100 years and we're still in it's worse. Like at this point, it's worse. Sit with that, y'all. Sit with that shit. Like that's really upsetting, and that's like a big reason that triggers. That's a big component to my mental health. Like when it comes to wanting to pursue this as an independent artist, and this is real. This is real shit. This is vulnerable shit. You feel me? Like that shit makes me manic for real, and it's like I can't even enjoy my music for myself. Like, I just want to do my ting ming, you know? And this fear of wanting to not share my shit because niggas are going to copy paste it. And that shit is just awful. Especially they do that shit to trans people. They don't give a fuck. Because they know trans people got no money, no lawyers. Assholes. Yo, I hate bullies, yo. Get on my bully, yo. Alright, so the Great Depression. The Great Depression of the 1930s tempered the excesses of the 1920s, but it also spurred creative expression under hardship. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal even employed artists and writers through programs like the Federal Arts Project, recognizing art's value in tough economic times. World War II then shaped American creativity into a tool for unity and propaganda. The U.S. government actively coordinated with media industries to rally public support. Patriotic themes saturated advertising and entertainment. The newly formed Office of War Information in 1942 used Hollywood studios, radio, and print to disseminate pro-American messages. From newsreels to comic books, creative media depicted Axis enemies as caricatured villains and urged citizens to buy war bonds and contribute to the war effort. This period showed how economic and military crises led to both state-sponsored art, like morale-boosting posters and films, and tighter controls on creative content, shaping it to serve national objectives. Censorship and propaganda campaigns became commonplace, blurring the line between creative expression and political messaging in service of the war. So, this is really important because I want people to go to their favorite shows and really listen. Because, yo, when I tell you, it's unnecessary. This is why I get pissed. Because it's just like, why do you gotta do this? So, for example, I'm over here with AJ. We watching Orange is the New Black, right? And they're making references about poverty. And they literally mentioned a specific city in the Congo. I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? Like, what? Why? What did they do? Like, I'm so confused, yo. Why do you have to bring up a motherfucking country from another side of the fucking planet? I don't understand that shit. And what pisses me off, guys, let's keep it a buck 90. What pisses me off is that these motherfuckers over here acting like they ain't poverty in this fucking country. Like, that's what pisses me off. Bitch, why don't you, instead of talking about someone else's fucking country, why don't you fucking reference Flint? Why don't you fucking reference Camden? Why don't you fucking reference the fucking Bronx? Hello? Let's put it together. Coñazo. That shit is weird. It's weird as fuck. It's mad weird. It's weird. And then another example, if you go watch George Lopez specifically, this is a beautiful fucking example. But if you watch the show, the old one, George Lopez, his wife's father is Cuban. So like, yo, when I tell you, they painted the character, right? They painted the father as this like American loving Cuban, hates Castro, like he would kill him the second he sees him, and that's like the running joke. And every time he says that, like, then there's that funny like haha in the background, like everyone's laughing and they're like ha ha ha, like this is so funny. And then he'll be like, no, not these commies, and then literally, I'm not even shitting you. I'm not even shitting you. This is some Matrix shit. Deadass. Go watch the episodes. The second he says anything that's about communism or Castro or lo que sea, instant laughter. Instant laughter. Why am I telling you that? Because looking at color theory, when you think of the color yellow and the color red, and you put the color yellow and the color red together, what are things that you think about? The first thing that most people think about is McDonald's. That's color theory. It's using color to literally manipulate your mind to only think about one thing. So that the second you see yellow and red together, your stomach literally starts to grumble. Pavlov's dogs. That's a whole psychological experiment that teaches where essentially it's like you can essentially control when dogs drool or not, or when they're like hungry or lo que sea based off of the sound of a bell. So that tactic is 1,000 trillion% used in media because that was a war tactic. That was a war tactic in concentration camps all throughout the world. And that was a war tactic here to ensure that everyone is, being patriotic and thinking about the same things. So why am I saying this? Because when you put something like that, when you put like an insult about another identity, another group, and then you put the laughing right after that, you're telling your audience that is acceptable and that is funny and that is something that you're supposed to do, right? Because laughter brings familiarity, right? Laughter brings community. Laughter brings acceptance. Laughter is usually a nod to what is happening, right? So that's why it's very important. It's just like, cosas así, you don't gotta do all of that. And it's too hyper. Like, yes, you can be Cuban from Miami and love being an American Cuban. That's fine. But, like, the shit was way too hyperbole. And, again, yo entiendo, it's Hollywood. It's whatever. You want to get views. You want to get whatever. But what we need to really understand is that we have to be, especially as people of color, right? We have to be very careful with that. We have to be very careful with how we perpetuate and continue these systems of oppression, right? Talking about patriarchy, talking about white supremacy, okay? Talking about sexual violence. Like, at the end of the day, I get it, that shit sells, but we need to be very careful with that because by doing this, by sacrificing that, we're saying it's okay. And it's like, you can't sit here and be like, oh, let's do this, and then you're doing this, And again, I'm guilty as charged. This is a lifelong process of decolonizing our mind. But that's why we're here, and we're doing it together as a community. No shame, no judgment. We're just learning. Now, let's go to Cold War. In the post-World War II Cold War era, American capitalism and anti-communist ideology strongly influenced creative expression. The booming 1950s consumer economy promoted an idealized suburban lifestyle, reflected in Hollywood films and new television sitcoms that reinforced traditional patriarchal family roles. At the same time, the government and military actively steered cultural output as weapons in the ideological battle against the Soviet Union. Remember, this is like the race for space, right? All this is happening right now. So it was, again, like how I told you, it was first territorial, then it became military and economic, and also it becomes ideological as well. Because if you want to, if we're thinking of it from their perspective, if you want to rule the world, you can't just own just the land. You have to like own the people from top to bottom, meaning from their culture to their spirit to their physical to their everything, right? And to do that, that requires you controlling the economy. That requires you having a strong military. That requires you controlling ideology, right? That is why, like, it's important to know that, for example, these world banks, IMF, all these things, they were created by Western nations, by the United States of America, you know? And that's something to really keep in mind, that the entire world is adhering to a bank that is run by essentially one person. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know, we're not the only ones living here, you know, there's other people living here. Now get this, it says, modern art was enlisted as a symbol of free American creativity. The CIA secretly promoted abstract expressionist art exhibitions worldwide as proof of American individualism triumphing over Soviet conformity. To add on to that, Nelson Rockefeller even dubbed abstract expressionism, that art style, as, and I quote, free enterprise painting, end quote, linking artistic freedom to capitalistic ideals. You know what I mean? So like, ooh, that shit is a lot. Lord. They said business, they said money, they said deals, markets, contracts, business as usual, the bottom line. I know too much about this. Popular entertainment also fell under political scrutiny. In Hollywood, the Red Scare led to blacklists of filmmakers and actors accused of communist leanings, suppressing voices that challenged U.S. narratives. The 1950s quote-unquote cultural industry, as theorist Adorno observed, churned out formulaic content aligned with economic and political interests. Creative works became commodities, with stories and stars chosen for profitability and ideological safety. Dissenting or unconventional art, whether socially progressive scripts or music critical of American norms, struggled against these pressures. Overall, Cold War cultural policy molded American creativity into a controlled conformity, whether through overt propaganda or the subtler self-censorship driven by capitalism's market demands and fear of stepping outside patriotic norms. So that's really important because it's like, it's we already know this, but the United States is very hypocritical because it's like, oh, we don't want to be the same people. We don't want to be communists. We want to, you know, we want individualism. And that's the same type of authoritarian tactic that the Soviet Union was using. So it's like point blank. Now we're going to get to the fun part. This is my favorite. Counterculture era. So the 1960s unleashed waves of rebellion in music, film, and fashion, often pushing back against the capitalist and militaristic status quo. Anti-war protest songs and countercultural art flourished during the Vietnam War era, challenging American military intervention and social injustice. Yet, even as the youth countercultural critiqued quote-unquote the establishment, corporate forces found ways to co-opt and commodify its creativity. For example, the radical aesthetics of hippies and rock and roll were soon packaged by record labels and Madison Avenue into marketable trends, turning rebellion into revenue. That's really important to note. By the 1970s, Hollywood regained artistic freedom after the collapse of the old censorship code, producing films that questioned authority and war. Examples are Apocalypse Now, Network, and then others, you know, later down the line. But this window of subversive creativity met a new wave of commercialization in the 1980s. Under the Reagan-era neoliberalism, media consolidation and blockbusters took hold. Franchises and high-concept films prioritized profit and often revived simplistic patriotism, as seen in action movies that pitted American heroes against foreign villains. The music industry likewise became more corporatized with MTV-driven pop stars, while genres born from marginalized voices like rap and punk either faced resistance or were absorbed by major labels for mass consumption. And it's not just rap and punk. The list goes on, many folks. I know y'all can list some more. In fashion, exits and brand logos of the 1980s reflected aggressive consumer capitalism, even as subcultural styles were appropriated by designers. In short, late 20th century American culture saw a cycle of creativity and critique, followed by capitalist absorption and control, with even anti-establishment art eventually tamed into acceptable, profitable forms. Yeah, so something that's really important to note is that Reagan was dubbed the father of modern American capitalism and modern day America, and in the way that we view it, because Trump is doing with the whole taxes to the rich, that whole thing. So again, it's important because it's this is not new news. They've been doing this. It's strategic, and that's how you run a country. That's literally that's how you run a country. If you want to be the way that they are, that's how you run it. Like they say, apex predators. That's how you do it. You just gotta be a bully. And at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to be a bully than be a good person, because that takes more out of you. That requires not only your IQ, but that it requires your CQ and your EQ, right? Which is your cultural intelligence and your emotional intelligence. So when you work those three together, you're working the brain in all parts of it. And that's what we call critical pedagogy. That's what we call critical studies, because now you're critically thinking, right? Those are 3 dimensions. So now you're not thinking on a 2-dimensional level, right? But again, that takes a lot, because people like to just see what's in front of them, From the 1990s to today, digital technology has dramatically changed the creative economy, but capitalist dynamics and control remain strong. The rise of the internet and social media opened new platforms for expression in film, music, and fashion, theoretically democratizing creativity by allowing anyone to publish a video, song, or design. Yet, a few big tech companies now mediate most creative content, shaping what we see and hear through algorithms and market incentives. Tech giants like Google, Meta, and Apple wield gatekeeping power reminiscent of the old Hollywood studios or record labels, often monetizing creativity while underpaying creators. For instance, streaming services that give artists only a fraction of a cent per stream, which is, like I said, Spotify. The modern era has also seen the continuation of propaganda and media manipulation in new guises. Targeted advertising and algorithmic news feeds act as subtle propaganda, steering public opinion and tastes with subliminal precision. The war on terror after 2001, for example, saw news media and even entertainment heavily influenced by pro-military narratives, while digital platforms face pressure to suppress anti-war viewpoints. Today's creative landscape is paradoxical. It offers unparalleled tools for artistic innovation, yet American capitalism's drive to control, conquer, and dominate markets means that truly independent or radical art often struggles for visibility. Viral content and corporate-sponsored creations tend to drown out dissenting voices, and surveillance-era propaganda, from sponsored influencer posts to state-backed online disinformation, continues the tradition of using media to engineer social cultural shifts. In essence, the modern digital creative economy is still navigating the tension between open creativity and the concentrated power of capitalist institutions that manage and monetize cultural expression. So, boom, we made it. So, now I want to go deeper into that, right? I want to go and talk about the military entertainment complex, because that's something that's extremely important, right? And then go even deeper than that and talk about this ideology that they created, right? This American ideology, and how it's used to exploit marginalized communities, the folks from the margins of the margins. So let's do it. One stark example of capitalist and state influence on creativity is the close partnership between Hollywood and the U.S. military. For decades, the Pentagon and government agencies have incentivized film productions by offering access to military bases, vehicles, and technical expertise, but only in exchange for favorable portrayals of the U.S. armed forces. Filmmakers seeking tanks, fighter jets, or soldiers as extras must submit scripts for Defense Department approval. If a story is, quote, is at odds with military interests, it will be denied, end quote, support. It will be denied support. To secure the much needed equipment and realism, many Hollywood films consciously depict the military in a consistently positive light. The result is a form of soft censorship, right? Versus hard censorship, which is like, the posters in your face with the Uncle Sam pointing at you. Soft censorship is what I told you. Another example of soft censorship is what I said with mentioning Congo when you're talking about poverty or when you're relating to something really bad, or when you in your sitcoms you put laughter after every insult to a specific region or group. Like that's soft censorship. While not legally mandated, scripts often undergo changes at the Pentagon's request, sanitizing or omitting critiques of the U.S. military. As media scholar Roger Stahl notes, this ongoing collaboration amounts to, and I quote, one of the biggest peacetime propaganda operations in U.S. history, end quote. Iconic blockbuster movies, from pro-war thrillers to superhero franchises, double as recruitment ads or image polishing campaigns for the American military, normalizing warfare through entertainment. Beyond film, the military has also directly funded video games like the America's Army game and advised TV productions, further blurring propaganda into pop culture. This military entertainment complex shows how American wars and interventions have shaped creative content. War itself is sold as heroic and necessary, ensuring that art questioning imperialistic or violent aspects of U.S. policy is less likely to reach the mainstream. It underscores how media manipulation and even subliminal messaging, for example, patriotic imagery or language slipped into entertainment, right, serve to align public sentiment with the objectives of American capitalism and militarism. Ahora, beneath America's cultural innovations lies an exploitative structure rooted in patriarchal and white supremacist ideologies. The creative industries have long been dominated by white male power brokers who dictate which art is produced and who gets to participate. This has led to systemic exploitation of women and people of color, both as creators and as subjects of cultural representation. In early 20th century music, real quick, subjects of cultural representation is like fucking every single fucking TV show that has someone that's Latinx, they're only Mexican. And they have like this disgusting Mexican accent. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, first off, all Mexicans don't sound like that, one. And two, there's literally 21 Latin American countries. What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, like, no. And again, like, many indigenous tribes within all those countries. So, like, no. Like, that shit is such a fucking eye roll. And it's not funny, and it's not cute, and it's not fucking relatable. Every single time I grew up and I would see that shit, I would get so fucking annoyed. Because I'm just like, bitch, like, hello, what about me? Uh-oh. Anyways, in early 20th century music, for example, white-owned record labels profited off black artists while underpaying or obscuring them. It was openly noted that it was easier to exploit and underpay black artists than white ones, as labels would even grab rights to songs and omit black musicians' names from records. Similarly, Hollywood's history is rife with misogyny and racism. Studios in the Golden Age typecast and excluded non-white actors, and the infamous casting couch system preyed on aspiring actresses. So casting couch system, for those that watch too much porn, disgusting. No, I'm kidding. I watch a lot of porn. We ain't gonna shame that shit. But for those that know that, it's literally that. So, por ejemplo, that whole conversation, that whole system itself is called a casting couch, where it's like when you see, cover your ears for people that don't want to hear this, but when you're watching porn and there's usually a individual, whether it's a guy, girl, look at say a trans, whatever, and they're sitting in a couch and the camera's pointing at them and they just have a normal conversation. They talk about who they are, but then they also talk about their measurements and everywhere and like what they're into and how old they are, whatever the fuck, the whole thing. And then what is a what is truly like the norm is that typically the person who is your boss, you always have to have some type of sexual activity or sexual relations with them before you even get into the job. So that's something that's just within like sex work and within the porn industry. But then moving that into Hollywood, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this, because at the end of the day, like, the truth of the matter is that many people were forced to fucking suck dick to get to the top. Like, that's the tea. That's not even like a stereotype or a joke or whatever. Like, that's real life. And at the end of the day, when people like Hollywood is holding this gold medal that like people are literally dying to get, it's like, you'll do anything. And at the end of the day, I don't care what anyone says, because if you were in that situation and you were in that time, and you were even now, forget about even in that time, you don't know. You don't know. You may say something now, but you don't know because you're not in it, right? You don't know. For the artists that are out there and the creatives, how badly you want your art to be appreciated and be seen, and being able to profit off of that, and just even if it is $70K a year, you just enough to live, right? Like, just, you want that to be a main part of your life. But because of capitalism, you're forced to turn it into a franchise in order for it to be recognized. And because of the fact that we are social beings, Homo sapiens, they prey on that. They manipulate that. They take advantage of that. They take advantage of the fact that it is necessary for our mental well-being and for our physical well-being and for our spiritual well-being to be with other people and to be accepted by other people. It's not even like a validation-seeking thing. It's the truth of the matter. You grow better as a human. You get out of your comfort zone. You take more risks when you have more people, more diverse people accepting you for who you are. That is a fact. Point blank. Search it up. Let's continue. Even today, Hollywood often operates under a male gaze. Many stories of women are filtered through male creators, leading to the objectification or misrepresentation of female characters. Modern Hollywood touts diversity but frequently engages in the quote-unquote theater of progressiveness, adopting the appearance of inclusion only to profit from it. A telling example is a recurring white savior trope in films. Stories about racial issues that still center a white hero, satisfying a superficial demand for diversity while preserving white-centric narratives. You hear that? Preserving white-centric narratives. This reflects how even well-intentioned creative works can reinforce a hierarchy where BIPOC, which are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, characters exist at the mercy of white filmmakers and executives. In the fashion world too, beauty standards and trends have historically been set by Eurocentric, patriarchal norms, often exploiting cultures through appropriation and labor through sweatshops staffed by women of color for profit, women of color or children. Let's be very clear. These exploitative underpinnings mean that American capitalism not only shapes which creative expression thrives, but also who benefits from them. The culture industries often extract the talents and stories of marginalized groups while maintaining power structures that favor white and male voices. Challenging these conventions has never been easy. Artists who directly confront patriarchy, racism, or imperialism in their work have frequently been marginalized or censored by the mainstream. Yet, throughout the 20th century and into the digital age, resistance art forms, from the Harlem Renaissance to punk rock to today's hashtag movements. By calling out the ties between capitalism, militarism, and white patriarchal supremacy, such creative voices challenge the conventional narratives. They expose how genuine creativity can be stifled by the need to comfort power. Listen to that shit. Can be stifled by the need to comfort power, and they insist on new narratives that value truth and justice over profit. Each era's most groundbreaking art, be it a protest song, an independent film, or an avant-garde fashion statement, has pushed back against the notion that creativity must serve conquest or commerce. In highlighting these connections between economic structures and culture, we gain a clearer picture of how American society can move towards a more equitable creative future, One where art is not merely an instrument of capital or propaganda, but a space of true freedom and diverse expression grounded in historical truth. There you have it, mi gente. A little history, a little background so that we understand why I'm as mad as I am. Like, why I be talking about all this stuff. That's why I like to look at things from a post-structuralist approach, right? From a post-structuralist perspective. What does that mean? It means that we are looking at the world not by each other's gender, not by race, not by status economically, but holistically by the things that are inherently human. Because capitalism is not inherently human. It's not what we were meant to become. Entiende? We need to understand. We need to literally, like the Matrix, we need to open our eyes. And we need to see. We need to see that America is a baby. Compared to all the other countries, is a baby. Only 250 years, if that. We need to acknowledge that. Capitalism, real capitalism, and capitalism as we know it today, like I said, started with Reagan. That wasn't too long ago. That's a blip. Let's take it a step further. 10,000 years. 10,000 years ago is when we had the earliest documentation of writing, of something that is written. That's 10,000 years ago. We wasn't storing information and shit like the way we are before that. And then for more context, 300,000 years. That's how long Homo sapiens, specifically Homo sapiens, us, that's how long we've been on this earth. That's how long we've been on. And out of the 300,000 years, only 10,000 of it is filled with our history, our human history. And out of those 10,000 years, let's sit with that, my niggas. It's 10,000 years. I know it's hard to conceptualize because, you know, our average lifespan is like 80. Pero, come on. Out of those 10,000 years, you got maybe 50 good years. 50 years of modern day capitalism. And you're telling me that this is what we came to do? That this is what we were meant to do? This little itty bitty baby thing? Not the 10,000 years of collective history, of collective evolution. Fuck out of here. It is time for us as creatives, I'm talking to my creatives, as artists, and as people. It's time to let that shit go, and it's time to stop the fucking bullshit. It's time to fucking say I deserve more. And I'm talking to everybody. Because you, we, us, me, we think so little of ourselves. To think that the fucking end all be all is us fucking subscribing to Netflix and Instagram. Let that shit go. These white man, massa got you by the neck. Massa got you by the neck, bro. By the fucking neck. Spending your last time, your last dimes, your last moments of self-care running around amok. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber, Instacart. Working for the man just to get a fucking penny. Just so all that money can go to the gas money. Like, for real? Let's wake up. Right? It's not our fault. This bullshit of capitalism saying that, oh, it's your fault that you're in the situation that you're in, and it's because you're not working hard enough. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Like I said in the first episode, what the fuck do you mean I didn't work hard? What the fuck did you mean I didn't work hard? When I've been in a private school since the first fucking grade, reading the fucking Bible backwards and upside fucking down. When I went to a fucking Ivy League and graduated from that motherfucker. For me to end up with fucking barely anything. Not in the job that I want to be in. Not in the profession I want to be in. Not in the space that I want to be in. Not in the house that I want to be in. For what? All that fucking effort, all that work for what? How about my grandmother busting her ass for 42 plus years, giving fucking all her tax dollars, all her hard work, sweat, tears, todo. So what? So she can be making the same? Making less than 40,000 a year? You fucking kidding me? Why are y'all not livid? Stop throwing that shit on your children. And get livid at massa. Because it's not your child's fault. It's not your partner's fault. And it's not even your fault. It's massa's fault. You need to get that in your head. Get that shit in your mata. Stop thinking so little of yourself. I'm done doing that shit. Stop thinking so little of yourself. That ass. To think that that is your fucking value. No. More people need to get it fucking together, and more people need to collectively come together and say enough is fucking enough. It's not about fucking to have gender neutral trainee bathrooms. It's nothing like that. It's about the fucking facts. It's about what's fucking real. It's about being pro fucking human, period. Like, nah, fam. And I take it very personally because art is not meant to be like this. Art is not meant to be fucking chained down like a fucking cow. No. Absolutely the fuck not. 100 years of this cis heteronormativity. Fuck that shit, my nigga. I'm over it. It's boring. It's boring. It gives me a fucking headache. It's boring. Rapping about the same fucking shit. Money, bitches, cars. Money, bitches, cars. Money, bitches, cars. And if it's a female rapper, it's, oh, this, that. Mad ghetto, this, that. It's like, yo, like, I'm sorry, but no. No. And I'm gonna be honest, all the old heads of hip-hop specifically will agree with me. I don't give a fuck. Like, let's put some spirit into this shit. Let's put some emotion into this shit. This is the fucking time where we need to reimagine fucking hip-hop in the way that it was meant to be. Hello, Africa Bambaataa brought together fucking opposing gangs because at the end of the day, we all niggas. And we came together to make fucking music. And that's how hip-hop came about. Did we fucking forget that shit? Are y'all fucking dumb? And many of y'all are over here hip-hop rappers, this, that, and the third. Y'all don't even know the history, baby. ¿Qué tú estás haciendo? With massa. That's what you're doing. Wake the fuck up. The whole point of this shit was to take our value back. Was to remind ourselves that we have the talent. That we are valuable. That we don't have to just boil ourselves down to gang violence and black on black violence. That's the point. That was the point of hip hop. That's the point of jazz. That's the point of country. That's the point of Vogue. That's the point of every fucking black genre of music. That's the point. It pisses me the flying fuck off that so many artists, specifically in hip hop, only rap about capitalism in all of its forms. It pisses me the fuck off. It's fucking weird and disgusting. Like, you're really fucking weird for that. And if you think you're fucking cool for always doing that shit, like, no. Absolutely the fuck not. Hay que tener balance. Is that even a fucking word? But yeah, we gotta, like, it's not it for me, you know. And again, guilty as charged in terms of the type of content that I push out in terms of my rapping. But at final del día, I'm doing the work every day. I'm doing the work with my research. I'm doing the work with this podcast. I need more people to do the work. I'm doing the work with networking with other trans people of color, so that we can come together and really do something. And really collectively get a norm, a new norm on how we talk about things, on how we talk about ourselves. Is decolonizing our mind every day. We are students for life. You know what I mean? Like, grieving and growing is a lifelong process. You don't stop grieving. You feel me? I lost my birth mother when I was 2 years old. I'm never going to stop grieving. But it's how you take that grieving. It's how you coexist with that grieving. Because at the end of the day, you're always going to be grieving that shit. Always. But I made peace with that shit. And I put it in my music. I put it in my art. I use it to rebuild myself. I use it to set myself free. To remind myself that I'm more than this capitalist system. That's what post-structuralist. That's what post-structuralism is. That is what post-structuralism is. letting go and doing what's right for you. Just paint, right? Just paint. Just move your body. Just dance. Just spit. Just rap. Do it. Just do it. Don't think so much about it needs to be this way. It needs to be that way. It needs to have a catchy thing. It needs to have... No, just do it. Just do it because you are what we have been waiting for. So do it. Do it how you want to do it. As uniquely and as authentically and as you as possible. Do your part because I'm doing mine. Do your part as a person of color. Do your part as a trans person. Do your part as a creative, as an artist. Do your part as a human. Do your part as a fucking American. Do your part. That's all, my people. I'll leave you with that. Think about that. Think about my unpopular opinions and why the fuck I'm mad. And try to challenge yourself. Go watch your favorite film. Go watch your favorite TV show. Go listen to your favorite song. And sit with that. Sit with everything we've been talking about. Okay, when are we trash talking Africa? Okay, when are we doing this? Okay, when are we doing that? Oh, copy. Look at how we talk about Latina women. Okay, but look at how we talk about Asian women. Right, okay, oh, I see it now because they talk like this. And okay, got it. You feel me? Like, connect that. Connect that because everything is intentional. That's the last thing I'm going to leave you with. Everything is intentional. Okay? Even the things that you don't think is intentional, even the things that you think is just, oh, no, it's intentional. Everything is intentional. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a rhyme or reason, even down to nature, even down to the universe. Everything has a reason. Even if that reason is chaos and randomness, even if that reason is quantum, it is a reason. It is what it is. We are what we are. Be. We need to be. That is the end. That is the end goal. That is the lifelong teachings, the lifelong practice, the lifelong mission, right? Is to be. And be every day as much as you can. Don't worry about everybody else. Just do it. Just do what you need to do because you're doing it right. There is no one way to be a fucking human. That is so fucking weird. And it's weird coming from a fucking country that loves to parade democracy and fucking liberty and individualism and freedom. Like, y'all are fucking weird, all right? Weird. Stop that weird shit. Stop that loser shit because that's loser shit. If you want to be a loser, go do that, all right? I'm being so serious right now. If you want to be a loser, go do that because we're not doing that shit anymore. Enough is enough. Free yourself. It's about you. It's about you. You got this. It's about you. And another piece of advice, people love to talk. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. That's exactly why everyone listening and beyond, go get therapy. And get good therapy. Get psychotherapy. Get everything. Get everything. Everything. Do support groups. I do support groups. Do it. Go off. Do it. Because you may not think you don't need therapy, but you don't even notice that you're trauma dumping on all of the people that you give a fuck about, all the people that you love. You need to stop that shit because they're tired of you. And I'm here to tell you that for them. All right? So for anyone that wants to tell this to somebody, vete. Just this part right here. Get your shit together. Go get a fucking therapist because it's not fair to the people that care about you. Because I've been there, done that. I've hurt many people for that shit. It's not fair. It's not fair for the people that want the best for you to keep trauma dumping and doing all this shit. Go get a fucking professional. Use some coping mechanisms. Maybe get on meds if you need that shit. I'm on meds. Hello. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to do what you need to do. Find that balance for you, right? Do that hobby that brings you peace. Take that shower when you need to take that shower. Take a step back. Stretch. Move your head around, right? Move those hips around. Stretch that body. Open your hips, yo. Alright? Mi gente, te amo. That is all. I am your host, La Reina Taína. This is the Vamos Hablar Inglés podcast, episode 7. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, vete con Dios. Y que Dios te da amor, sabiduría y salud. Mua.
No pasa nada, yo vendo agua, meneo de culo.